Hi, this is Dr. Carl Goldkamp, and welcome back to another episode of the Keto Naturopath on YouTube. Well, today we're going to go through something that everybody always asks about. It's like, what about supplements? What supplements do you take? Do you take any supplements? Where do you get the supplements? All these things are just kind of this endless conversation that you can never finish. It's a series of half-asked questions and half-answered questions. And so I wanted to say, this is what I do. This is my context of it. And I think other people can possibly do, from a contextual point of view, what we're doing and go from there. But yes, supplements are necessary, in quotes. It's on a per occasion, on a per person basis, and a per situation basis, per context basis, okay? And per history and so on. So I wanted to go through what we're doing. And then for part two, where we get those, where you can get those, should you want to, and why you might want to, and brands to go through. So that will be a whole separate thing, more the mechanics of, and this will be the what we're doing and why we're doing it. And it's basically just me right now to keep it simple. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so the supplements that I take on PSMF, protein sparing modified fast. Well, there they are. Show's over. We're done. Any questions? Okay, now we're going to go through that. So what I take nearly daily, I am a person who hates taking supplements. I don't like to have anything chain me down to a regular thing I have to do. I think when I left practice, there's a part of me, though I was about to get really ill, that was feeling a little freed from having to be at the office at 7 o'clock in the morning and stay till nearly 7 at night, 4 to 5 days a week. So once you stop doing that for a couple of decades, it's suddenly a tremendous change in your life. And so perhaps I'm just reacting to all that. I don't like to take anything consistently. I'm an adult now. I can do what I want. But I come from that. But some things I take nearly daily, and I'm going to go through that. And I have my little categories of how to explain this to you. Okay, so potassium magnesium aspartate. You might remember with the video from Dr. Gaby, which I'll put the connection up here, is that we talked about this is the most researched combination of magnesium for muscle cramps in particular. It's used for chronic fatigue, not chronic fatigue syndrome, and so it's the most researched supplement out there. Everything else, relative to magnesium, by the way, everything else is just, well, have you tried this? Well, this is really good. And there's no actual research on any of that outside of the company that makes the ABC little supplement that says it's the new wonder drug for the world. So potassium magnesium aspartate, we talked about that at length, why that was so important. We talked about other kinds of magnesium, but this is one of the magnesium ones that I take. And so this is the most researched, and having potassium with magnesium for things like muscle cramps. Why muscle cramps? Because I drink a lot of coffee. Should you want to know? Don't tell anybody I'm related to, but I take a lot of, I like coffee. And the thing is, coffee, it can deplete some of your electrolytes, primarily potassium and magnesium, and a little bit of calcium, but mostly it's potassium, magnesium, and therefore, you replace that. But on the whole, in the United States anyway, we are all magnesium deficient, so just magnesium is a good supplement to have anyway. This is perhaps the best. So is this the best brand? This is a good brand. It's a brand that I use, Pure Encapsulation. There's 4 or 5 other brands that do the same thing, so I'm not so much stuck on the brand. I have a little loyalty there, but I have no great affinity for this. If there was, of the 4 or 5 other brands, and later we'll talk about what brands I think are good brands, if they were cheaper or something else, I'd probably switch to them. So, but this is good. I have no doubt that this is good, and I don't think they're trying to fool me, and I've been, using this for a long time, so I'm not too worried about it. And Pure Encapsulation as a company, which has been sold to another company, has been around for at least the last 2 decades, since the mid-90s. All right, here's another company, Vital Nutrients, but magnesium glycinate malate. It's just magnesium by itself. Why do I take this form as opposed to oxalate? Well, as you saw, I'm already taking some magnesium. This is when I want to just up the magnesium side of things for before bedtime, or if I just wanted to take one supplement with me, maybe I'm traveling, this would be the easiest one to take. Okay, so I do have another, so it's magnesium, glycinate, malate, and yet another magnesium supplement. We call this CalMag, calcium magnesium. And usually when you get calcium magnesium, a CalMag, which is made probably by 50 different companies, it's hard to get this wrong. And therefore I simply went with a trusted name, not the most expensive and certainly not the cheapest. But so it's a citrate malate. And why this is good, because really through the 90s and the first decade of the 2000s, this is what I would use for muscle cramps and so on. For so many different people, it was kind of the tried and true CalMag. And also CalMag, you have to ask the ratio. What's the ratio between the calcium and the magnesium in this one? And that's why I showed this other shot over here. The calcium is a 1:1. So this is a 1:1 ratio. You can have a 2:1 ratio. So you can choose what's required. I don't think I want to be too high on the calcium. Calcium's never been an issue for me. And so therefore I have a 1:1. Calcium, CalMag, I find, is a great thing to take before bed. So you say, well, magnesium in general, and magnesium, various types of magnesium, are also used in Chinese herbal medicine. So it's pretty much universal, and it's been around for a millennia or 2 or 3 or 5. And it's just very helpful. So this is what I take, and CalMag is kind of what you would get from shells. I'm not saying this is from shells. These are chelates, meaning they're chelated with an amino acid. Okay, they're chelated with something else. Okay, fish oil. I mean, it's pretty generic stuff, isn't it? We're still in pure encapsulation. There's certainly 5 or 6 other companies that are great companies to get fish oil from. So I'm not saying, oh, you got to get this from this company. No, not at all. This is fine for me. It's what I've always gotten. If I really needed to do a dissertation on fish oil and where's the best EPA and DHA you can get, well, then we'll talk about it then. But right now, this says it's from anchovies, sardines, and mackerel. And a little story on fish oil, by the way. Fish oil became so popular in the 90s and early 2000s, and the sources of fish oil that they were getting was from menhaden. So why should you get EPA and DHA? It obviously is an omega-3. These are the only 2 essential fatty acids you ever have to have in your whole life. I find that a little odd to say that, but that's, there's so much research on that. It's true. It's locked, it's etched in stone, and so on and so forth. But saturated fats are also the source of your energy. This is a source for cellular metabolism, you might say. This is what the cellular envelope is in. 20% of your brain fat is DHEA, and EPA is in there as well. So it's unique to neurons, it's unique to your nervous system, your brains, spinal cord, etc. So it's very important. So do I take much of this? I just take 2 with my CalMag and my magnesium and aspartate before I go to bed. This is my bedtime stuff. Pretty generic stuff, not shaking any trees here. But having this on a regular basis just keeps a lot of trouble. It keeps a lot of deficiencies from happening. So when people go, oh, you need more omega-3s, you shouldn't have too much omega-6s. Well, that's a half-informed statement to make. We have a 3:1 ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s, but the question is, what kind of omega-6 are you having? And if you get it from fish and poultry and animal, and let's say they're all free range, just for that sake, you still are going to be getting more omega-6s than you are omega-3s. So when people talk about, well, eat your fish because it's rich in omega-3s, that's true. There's always going to be more omega-6, and you have a 3:1 ratio, 6:3, omega-6:3 in your body and my body, and that's a good ratio. Most people are extreme on the omega-6. They have a 20:1 ratio, 20 times more omega-6 than 3, and that's a dangerous situation to be. That's very pro-inflammatory. So when we talk about bad omega-6, it's bad omega-6. It's the soy, it's the corn oil, it's the canola oil for sure, the safflower oil, and that's the short list. People talk about, well, arachidonic acid, there's a big word for you, is omega-6. True, but that's a natural omega-6 that shows up in meat, fish, and poultry. So don't sweat the small stuff. It's not all about omega-3. And some people are so uninformed in the sense of having so much omega-3 that they push it too far in the other way, and what can happen is you can't clot very well. So if you actually have a ratio of more omega-3 than omega-6, you will induce a clotting problem. So anyway, you just need a little of this every day. I think it's a great thing to have. Don't go nuts with it. This isn't going to change your life, but it will change, if you do this on a regular basis. You'll probably maintain your brain power for many decades into your 70s, 80s, and 90s and beyond. So it's just a little thing. All right, homocysteine supreme. It's from a different company called Designs for Health. They're out of Connecticut, which is where I used to practice. But it's for my genomic support, and I'm going to show you why I'm taking these in the latter part of this video. So let me point out what this is. Riboflavin, that's B2, B6, folic acid as methylfolate, or 5-methyltetrahydrofolate. That's not any more effective. It's just that it's become such in demand, it would be product suicide for a product just to have folate and not methylfolate. It'd be cheaper, but there's no great efficiencies. It's one of those marketing myths that got over-promoted, and unfortunately it's stuck in people's minds and you can't afford not to include it. And then you have vitamin B12, which is methylcobalamin, trimethylglycine, otherwise known as beta-ene. You'll see these. So beta-ene, NAC is a precursor for glutathione. So B12, folic acid, B6, B2, remember those. We'll talk about those second. And this is for me. This is on Dr. Carl Goldkamp, so it might not be for you, and I'll show you why that is. So it's not one size fits all by any stretch of the imagination. Here's a multi that I haven't taken a multi for a couple months, but every so often I'll buy a canister of this multi, still pure encapsulation. I'm just familiar with this product. This is a good multi with NAC. Why NAC? It's a precursor for glutathione, which is a big antioxidant in your body. And it's one of those things that I have a trouble producing. We'll talk about that. And so this is what it is. And it's what I take. I think taking 1 or 2, it says take 6 a day. Don't take 6 a day. Take 1 or 2 a day. You do the little things, through a long period of time, and you'll avoid problems down the road. And primarily, this is the people that I would prescribe this to and other multis. It's because their diet was processed foods. Their diet was high in the industrial oil omega-6s that I've talked about before. So they needed help not to die from the way they were leading their life in terms of dietary regime. So that's how that is. This is what I recommend. It hits a lot of bases. It's and you can get a variation of this. For instance, for women that are still cycling, you would have iron. You don't have iron for men, and so on and so forth. So I like it. Okay, so what do I take for immune support? So when I actually do get sick, which I haven't in a long time. So I'm going to show you, I'm actually going to take you to our Facebook group and show you what we use as an immune support protocol, okay? Okay, so here we are looking at our Facebook group called Keto Naturopath. Surprise, I bet you didn't see that coming. And so this is a different comments and so on and so forth. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Files, and under Files we have here we go, General Prevention Protocol. What's really interesting, I did this for COVID, obviously, about a year ago, March. And it's a PDF, and so here we go. I'll bring this over. And you can see that, what do we have? Vitamin C, vitamin D with K2. We have NAC, zinc, melatonin, vitamin A, elderberry, thyme, oils, keto MCT oil, dosages for children. We talked about exercise, keep hydrated, saunas, use of saunas, diet, low-carb diet. And why am I talking about this? I'm talking about metabolic health. If you're in metabolic health, as we've all learned now, well, on the end of the pandemic, we hope, that it had to do with metabolic fitness. So if you're metabolically fit, you would do fine. And disclaimer was, I wasn't anybody's doctor. These are things we do for ourselves. And see if there's anything I skipped. Oh, I talked about conventional medicine, the issues between hydroxychloroquine, and now the argument's gone to other things as well, so on and so forth. So that was the protocol that we had for general health. So now I can continue with what I do. So this is a botanical formulation, which is convenient. Convenience means something here. And so what's it made of? It's made of, well, proteases. Proteases break down your inflammatory complexes. Okay, so when you have inflammation, it can be measured by usually a thing called CRP, C-reactive protein. And this is something that breaks it down. Meat tenderizer, if you will, by the way. If you were ever at home and feeling very inflamed, feeling terrible, if you, on an empty stomach, if you had some of your meat tenderizer, put it in a little water and drink it, it won't taste that bad. Not very spicy, generally speaking. It will actually be an anti-inflammatory. But if you have it, if you have a meat tenderizer with your meal, it's going to tenderize the meal. It's going to help you digest the meal. But if you have it on an empty stomach, it's actually an anti-inflammatory. So seraptases, trypsin, chymotrypsin, these are all things that help break down your immune complex. Turmeric, you've heard of that. Boswellia, perhaps you've heard of that, otherwise known as frankincense. Ginger extract. Okay, so that's Inflammaton. It's also by Designs for Health. What I take periodically, that is when I feel so moved. So vitamin D, I don't take vitamin D. It's in the summer. It's in North Carolina. The sun is extreme. Where, if you mow the lawn once a week, you have your sun for a month. So, but anyway, vitamin D, K1 and K2 is what we use in the winter months. On the off season, but I don't take any vitamin D during the really after, like here, North Carolina, probably after April, and I probably won't have to take any until December. Okay, quercetin. Quercetin was part of that protocol. I don't know if you saw that. Quercetin basically helps zinc get into your cells as an antiviral. It's called a chromophore. And anyways, that's what zinc is. And that's what quercetin is. It goes hand in hand with zinc. And then there's zinc. Zinc is, if you're taking zinc when you are feeling badly, cold and flu, that's fine. But generally, zinc has to be balanced with copper, about a 9-to-1 ratio. Things that I've experimented with in the past, or am experimenting. This was sent to me by Wellevate, which is where we get our supplements, and this was basically about a mitochondrial support. They thought I would be interested in it. So I just wanted to sort of flip it on its side and show you what's in it. Reversatol, you've heard of that. CoQ10, I'm sure you've heard of that. If you're on a statin, you better be taking CoQ10 and Reversatol. But you probably haven't heard of urolithin A. So what are we going to do? Urolithin A has been in the news lately. What this is, it tends to drop oxidative stress. And so in terms of, I guess, everybody's life, but really about mitochondrial, because they thought part of your mitochondrial breaking down, getting older, is that you have increased reactive ROS, reactive oxygen species. And this sort of quells that a little bit. Here's an article on that, and this is 2020, so it's pretty recent. And here's another one. It said in Nature Metabolism, the mitophagy, the breaking down of the decrepit mitochondria, taking the garbage out. Remember, just like AMPK, just like fasting. When you fast, you get autophagy. Everybody wants autophagy. This is mitophagy, which is a form of autophagy. So mitophagy activator, urolithin A, is safe and induces a molecular signature of improved mitochondrial and cellular health in humans. All right, pretty nice, interesting. So you can go look these up and you can read more about it should you want to. But I thought that formula, since they sent it to me, I thought that formula would be pretty interesting. The thing about taking these sort of longevity supplements and mitochondrial support supplements is how are you going to feel a difference if you're already in pretty good mitochondrial health? I don't know. Anyway, I'll take it and see what happens. Here's a DHEA. And by the way, if you want to find out more about DHEA, go to the conversation I had with Dr. Gaby, that it really is something that declines as we get older, and it is one of those things that's considered anti-aging. However, do not take too much of it, and it can increase testosterone. It can have increased risk for cancer. But if you are deficient, and you'll see in that particular video that I did of our interview, I showed you people who are deficient on it that were prescribed DHEA, and it made some difference, we believe. So did I find any difference? I don't take this anymore. I haven't taken this for 2 years. I was intrigued. I thought I'd take some. The only thing I got out of it was acne, you know? So I didn't feel stronger. I didn't feel more alert. I didn't feel smarter. I didn't feel anything except acne. So I think you work out and do the HIT we've talked about before, you'll be well on your way. All right, muscle aches and muscle cramps. Again, it's the magnesium, potassium magnesium aspartate, most researched. CalMag, I told you about that as well. And headaches, pulled muscles, bruised. So what do we use for pain? This is where, so hemp oil, CBD. We all know about CBD. This is our source of CBD. It comes from Thorne, and I think it's a great company. And so, for instance, I had pulled a muscle yesterday working out, did something I shouldn't, and I really couldn't sleep. So I got up at 12 and I went down and took 2 of these. They call it hemp oil, CBD, and it helped. It didn't make me dozy. It took the pain away. I didn't wake up logy at anything. So the thing about this is if you don't have a reason to take it, it's not going to do anything. So if I just took this, I don't feel tonight, and I have no particular pains, nothing's going to happen. It would be a total waste. I'm not going to sleep better. I'm not going to have any great dreams. But if I'm in pain, cold and flu, it has been the perfect thing to take at that point. I can't say enough about it. But it's also a waste of money if you have no reason to take it. Here's things we simply have in the house for emergencies. So activated charcoal binds poison. So if for whatever reason, yourself or a kid, or let's say you had food poisoning, you take activated charcoal to the point your stools come out black. You can't take too much. It's benign, and it will either help you or it won't. And we have lavender right by the stove, and many people don't know this. Lavender oil, essential oil, you put it on. If you burn yourself, you put that on and your burn sensation disappears immediately. I've known about this for 20 years. However, before I knew about this and I tried this, I go, that's amazing. It absolutely is amazing. So you take it, a few drops, you know, boom, boom, rub it in your fingers, wherever you burned yourself, suddenly it's gone. It's the closest thing to magic, and I'm sure there's a reason for it, I just don't know. So here's why I'm taking some supplements on my genomic context, okay? And this is about me. This is about me, Dr. Goldkamp. It's not about you, because I don't know who you are. But here we go. So this was the beginning of some of the reports that both Judy and myself had. And we are both similar with one really rather bad gene. We are both homozygous, meaning on both genes, we have the worst polymorphism you could have that is responsible for converting B12 to methylated B12. That was one that, well, both of us had the same thing. If she didn't have it and I had it, that would be, we couldn't have children because of this, but I didn't know this at the time. It wasn't until about 5 or 10 years later this research came out. So this actually, among other things, has association with schizophrenia, bipolar, infertility, both in men and women. So there's that. Here's a different person. I want to tell you a different variety. So this is a SNP that is partially obstructive. This is a SNP, single nuclear polymorphism, that's very obstructive. The one we have, here's ones that are heterozygous. Here's one who has both these 2 different types, but they only have one of either. And here's another one that just has none of the one we have and just one of the other. So there's different degrees you can have a problem here. The most egregious problem you can have is the MTHFR. And so there's that. Let's get on to some more. So here's some other genes in the area. This is what I just showed you. We're going to look at these as well. So I have both of these. And there's various, these are obstructions. So just remember MTHFR, MTRR, and CBS, just like CBS News. All right, now let's put them into a map. This is kind of blinding. This is called the, in essence, methylation cycle, folate acid cycle, and this is where your glutathione, transsulfuration glutathione is made. Let's break it down a little bit. We're going to go quickly. So remember I told you things about, I said, well, betaine, that supplement that I'm taking had trimethylglycine. What's another name for this one? So we have some of that fills that out. Helps me produce, up here, SAM. SAM is an antidepressant for many people. What else? It gave me in that supplement B12, methylated B12, because I have MTHFR. I have a tough time converting folate to methylated folate. I said to methylated B12, to methylated folate. So this is the supplement that I'm taking. It sort of hopped over that problem. The MTRR, I showed you two SNPs, two obstacles, two mutations that I had that slows that down. So I had that one, that one, that one. And I also had, well, the next slide. So you can see in my case, it could be a problem. So let's go to the lower part of that. So here's continuing down, here's the glutathione, the big antioxidant, but there's a CBS. So I have a slowed CBS. Notice B6 is there. So B6, which is part of that. Let me go up here. We had B2. I forgot to tell you about B2. There's zinc, B6, B2. There's also B3. The NAC is a precursor, cysteine, so it helps me with the glutathione. So it's a big deal for me. It may not be a big deal for somebody else. So here's another way of looking at that. It's these are the slightly different representation, a little simpler. There's a glutathione. So these are the problems that I have, and then a number of other people do have as well. So you can see it can affect neurotransmitter production. It certainly affects the antioxidant ability I have, so the detoxification. So I need to take care of that, and I totally buy into that way. For me, it has made a difference. And so that's how it is. And so that's why I'm really concerned about my diet. I make sure that I'm not having processed foods, because somebody like me would be really affected with processed foods, with all the fake oils and everything else. Okay, here's just a bigger way of looking at it, not to blind you, but it is a big deal. And you can look at, there's the big B12, and there's zinc and B2. Don't want to go too far, but you can see if you have a problem there, or you can be this guy that has a problem there, and there, or pretty much like me is that way. But most egregious is right here, and a little less so, and also a little less so, but it needs to be supported. So that's pretty much the end of the idea of supplements. You know, supplements are not one size fits all. It's the person, it's the context, and if you want to get into deeper, you do look at the genome, but some people can have my set of genes and not need my supplements. You know, they live in a wonderful life, and I've always had good sources of food. So it varies. You know, it's not definite you need this just because you have this situation, but we couldn't have children, and it took a while for us to figure that out, and other things. I am dyslexic, only one in the family, and now I've examined the whole family. I realized, yeah, I was the one that was selected to be dyslexic for a lifetime. So until next time, what I want to say is, well, that's the end for sure. Next time I'm going to go into the how and why, where we get them, why we get them, consider it or don't consider it. It's just that people ask me this so often. Where do I get this? Which one should I get? I'm not going to tell them now, say this is where you can shop and why you would shop, and these are the brands I would look for, and I'll recommend some protocols I put out there, generally speaking, when people ask for those things. Okay? So till next time, I hope this was helpful. Take care. Bye-bye.